It began on a gray, rain-soaked morning in October 1993, the kind of morning that made everything in the small town of Fairview, Oregon, feel heavier than usual. The streets were slick, the clouds hung low, and the only sounds were the steady hum of rain against rooftops and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. At 8:47 a.m., the quiet broke. A jogger found a body along the edge of an old service road that cut through the woods behind Fairview's industrial park, a stretch of land most people avoided. The victim was a young woman, mid-20s. Her clothes were soaked through, her eyes open, staring blankly into the treetops. Her wallet was missing, but what stood out was the object placed carefully beside her, a plain white envelope, sealed, and propped against her shoulder like a calling card. The envelope was addressed simply, "For the Fairview Police Department." Detective Martin Hale had seen a lot in his 15 years with the department, but something about that envelope sent a shiver through him. The handwriting was neat, too neat, every letter precisely formed, almost mechanical. He took it back to the station, placed it on his desk, and waited for the forensic techs to check it for prints. Nothing. No smudges. No DNA. Just a letter inside that began with 3 words that would come to define the case. "Catch me, if you can." That was the start of what Fairview's local paper would later call the letter killer case, a name that seemed too sensational for such a quiet town, but it stuck. Over the next 14 months, the killer would claim 4 more victims, and with each one, another letter would appear. The letters were always found near the body, never mailed. Each written in the same tidy, deliberate script, and always signed the same way, "Yours truly." The messages taunted police. He mocked their failures, ridiculed their press conferences, even referenced details that hadn't been released to the public. It was clear he was watching, not just the investigation, but the people running it. Hale later said in an interview, "It felt like we were dancing to his rhythm. Every move we made, he already knew the steps." The first letter had been short, just a challenge. The second, found 2 months later beside another victim, was longer. In it, he described the crime scene in eerie detail, almost poetic, as if he were proud of it. He referred to the woman as "my second piece," and warned there would be more. He ended with a line that made everyone in the department's blood run cold, "You'll find the next one closer to home." And he was right. 3 weeks later, a third victim, a local librarian named Karen Price, was found just 2 blocks from the police station. The city panicked. Reporters camped outside the station, flashing lights through the night. The mayor called emergency meetings. And the people of Fairview, who once left their doors unlocked, started double bolting them, sleeping with the lights on. But the killer didn't just want fear, he wanted control. Each new letter included a small riddle, a clue written in rhyme, always just vague enough to frustrate detectives. One read, "5 rings beneath the tower's face, a shadow waits in a quiet place." It led police on a wild goose chase to the old church bell tower, but by the time they figured it out, another victim had already been found. This one was different. The crime scene was staged, almost theatrical. The victim, a young man, had been positioned sitting upright in a chair, his hands clasped neatly in his lap. And taped to his chest was another letter. The writing had changed slightly, same neatness, but shakier. Analysts thought maybe it was written faster, or that the killer had been under stress. Whatever the reason, it gave Hale hope. Maybe, finally, the killer was slipping. But if the killer was getting nervous, he didn't show it. 2 weeks later, another envelope appeared, this time, not at a crime scene. It was hand-delivered to the Fairview Gazette. The letter was different. Longer, rambling, almost confessional. He wrote about the thrill of the game, about how watching the police scramble was better than any high. But buried between the boasts was something that caught investigators' attention. He mentioned a detail from the very first crime scene, something that hadn't even been included in police reports. He wrote, "She didn't scream. Not once. Not even when I showed her the knife." That sentence changed everything. Because the killer wasn't supposed to know there was a knife. The medical examiner had determined the cause of death was blunt force trauma, not stabbing. But there had been knife marks on the bark of a tree near the body, as if someone had tested the blade there first. That detail was never released. It meant one thing: the letters were real. The FBI was called in. They built a task force, codenamed Mirror. The name came from the killer's habit of reflecting police statements back at them in his letters. If Hale went on TV saying, "We're making progress," the next letter would open with "Progress is good." It became a game of psychological warfare. They brought in behavioral profilers, handwriting experts, even linguists to study the letters. They noted the phrasing, formal, deliberate, with an odd mix of arrogance and restraint. It sounded like someone educated, maybe even from law enforcement. The killer used phrases like chain of custody and modus operandi. He referenced containment protocols and jurisdictional overreach. Words most civilians wouldn't use casually. The theory forming was chilling: the killer might be someone inside the system. That suspicion grew when a local officer named Daniel Kerr took his own life 6 months into the investigation. Kerr had been with the department 8 years, and though no one wanted to believe it, there were whispers that maybe he'd been involved. But DNA from the letters didn't match. And handwriting comparisons were inconclusive. The department was left chasing shadows again. Then, in late 1994, the letters stopped. No new victims. No new clues. Just silence. For months, Hale waited. Every call, every anonymous tip, every strange envelope, he hoped it was the one that would finally end it. But nothing came. Fairview began to breathe again. Businesses reopened, kids played outside. The story faded from headlines, replaced by other news. Until February 1996. 2 years after the last killing, a letter appeared at the station. Same paper. Same ink. Same handwriting. But this time, the tone was different. It was calm. Almost nostalgic. "You've done well," it began. "No more bodies, no more games. But you never found me, did you?" He signed it, as always, "Yours truly." Hale stared at that letter for hours. It wasn't gloating. It wasn't even threatening. It was almost fond. Forensics found nothing new. No fingerprints, no trace evidence. But what made it worse, the envelope had been dropped in a mailbox less than 2 blocks from Hale's house. It felt personal now. Years passed. The case went cold. The FBI closed their file in 2001, calling it inactive but unsolved. Hale retired in 2005, still haunted by the case. He said in one interview, "It's not the faces I remember most. It's the letters. The way they smelled like printer ink and rain." And then, in 2010, something strange happened. A retired postal worker from Fairview passed away. Among his belongings, his daughter found a box of old newspapers, a few photographs, and, tucked inside an envelope, a letter written in that same exact handwriting. It wasn't one of the letters police had ever seen before. It wasn't addressed to the department or the press. It was a draft. Unfinished. The first line read, "You think you're chasing me, but really, I've been chasing you." The signature was there too. "Yours truly." The postal worker had lived on the same street as the second victim. He'd worked nights, sorting mail alone at the Fairview distribution center, the same center where the killer's letters would have passed through for years. Police reopened the file and tested DNA on the letter. But again, no match. Some believe he was the killer. Others think he just found one of the letters and kept it. But one theory, the one Hale believed, was that the real killer planted it. That he'd wanted them to find it. To this day, no one knows who wrote those letters. The original case file sits in a locked cabinet at the Fairview Police Department, 1,200 pages of dead ends, theories, and unanswered questions. But sometimes, on quiet nights, someone still leaves an envelope at the front desk. Always blank. Always empty. No fingerprints. No note. Just that same heavy white paper. And though there's never anything inside, every officer who's ever touched one says the same thing. The paper still smells faintly of printer ink. And rain. Because maybe, just maybe, he never stopped watching.